Bonjour, bonsoir. Dear friends, we are tonight with a very famous young man. Let's have a toast.
Cheers.
Mr. Eric Titus,
Thank you.
the grandson of the Roman Empire. You know that his ancestors built and finished the Colosseum in Rome. He is the true descendant, not of Julius Caesar, but almost. He's been born and raised in the fabulous wine country, incredible estate Titus Vineyards. And he's a very interesting man because not only he is today leading the family business, but he has an incredible path as being a marine expert in biology and toxicology, as a PhD in this field. So we're going to talk wine, we're going to talk environment, we're going to talk the marine world, and we're going to talk about the future of the future, whatever the future leads us to.
Exactly.
So Eric, welcome.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Great
Always
pleasure.
a pleasure. Yeah.
And we're trying one of your great wine.
Yeah. So this is a Malbec. Interesting place to start in the lineup here, but we have representative wines of what Titus is producing, what we've evolved to produce. And the Malbec, I just wanted to pick it first because it's a nice low tannin, high color, very just tasty, scrumptious wine. It's one of the ones that we show first in the winery, and it's the one that we subsequently sell a lot of because for two reasons. People would just remember the first wine that they had and the last wine that they had. But because it's just this real scrumptious drink now quality, very concentrated. And it's a low production item for us, and it's an interesting statement for us from the standpoint that years ago, back in the late 90s, we started aggressively blending. Something that you're very familiar with in the old world is using all the Bordeaux varietals to put together for your blend. In Napa, in California, domestic wines in general were very focused on the varietal that was on the label. So we started experimenting with the Petit Verdot, Malbec, Merlot, and Cabernet Franc.
The magical alignment.
And why wouldn't you, right?
Yeah.
To help complete the wine. Malbec is one that we really focused on because we just thought it really was the perfect complement to the Cabernet. And it's low tannin, high color, nice, bright, just grapey flavor. Lots of berry and other types of fruit descriptions, but it's just very grapey.
And you know what is so great? In many ways, Malbec vacated now Bordeaux for all the reasons of climatology we know. So it doesn't really shine any longer. It went to Argentina, but maybe one of the best places to do it is right here in Napa Valley. Right?
Yeah.
But now, Eric, you have an incredible life. Born and raised here.
Yes.
Family in San Lena. You left to study, marine biology. Tell us about this and what attracted you to that world. From earth to ocean.
Sure. Growing up here, of course, we've always been close to the ocean. And so there's a marine influence. And I just didn't realize what it was like to have that influence until you weren't close to it. But I decided early on that now again I'm a child of the 70s, 60s, and 70s, and we were very influenced by early environmentalists like Jacques Cousteau,
for sure,
who took us below the surface of the ocean.
My favorite.
My original childhood favorite, and whenever I've been asked the question of who would you like to sit down with, alive or deceased, and spend an evening with.
Your last supper.
Yeah, it was always Jacques Cousteau was the person that I would have wanted to sit down and listen to what he had to say. Very interesting man. And but anyway, it was through his influence that myself and I think a generation of us were exposed to the undersea world and how it relates to it. It's not just a mysterious place below the surface that's full of sharks and all kinds of scary things. Yeah. It's a very interesting dynamic place that the balance of our ecology is dependent on.
As interesting as above.
As
above,
more,
so
if
below.
Not more.
Yeah, if not more.
Yeah.
So you got attracted to it. You said, I want to study it. You a scuba diver? You a surfer?
Yeah, scuba surf, fish, spearfish. I really like the idea if you're going to go fishing to get on there, make it an even contest, you know. If
For
we go
sure.
down. But nevertheless, it was through both, I think, somewhat of a pursuit of wanting to do good in the world and also just have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So it's somewhat self-serving, somewhat
Yeah,
altruistic.
go on. Explain us what you mean wanting to do good in the world, because I so much relate to what you're saying.
Yeah, well, there's you know, the people that when I was doing my undergraduate, it was a marine biology program at Cal Berkeley, and the people that were also in that program, we were all of a similar ilk, that we were aware of the environment, and it was also adventurous. At that time, you know, environmental issues were becoming commonplace. You know, Earth Day, the first Earth Day was in the early 70s, and that was obviously a pivotal point for people to understand our impacts on the environment. So many of us, I think, had the idea that we wanted to be part of that, and making sure that the marine environment stayed high integrity and clean, and it's a sink for all kinds of you know, toxins and discarded anything of society. Yeah. And we all wanted to be part of understanding it better and understanding the ecological balance. So that was the do good part, and then the adventure and a little bit more the self fulfilling was just the adventures of going around the world and exploring all.
Yeah, but you're right. It's part of a movement, though, that we were raised with, which was amazing. Besides Greenpeace and those powerful movements, a true understanding that we are one world. The three elements are essential to one another. Yeah. You know, the underwater, the earth, and the sky. Yeah. And, you know, connecting them all. Oh, yeah. So you did your PhD into that. What is the key thing you want to relate on the marine world that would be interesting for all of us to relate to?
Well, you know, at one time I thought it was that, you know, it's become unfortunate sink for so many different, you know, like I said, things that are discarded from human society. And that is a big issue. But more and more, you know, with the issues related to climate change, subtle or overt, you know, the marine environment that's where we're going to see the biggest changes. And then if you bring it full circle to something that everyone here can understand, I mean, our industry is very dependent on what's going on 30 miles from here over the open ocean.
That's right. Yeah. But let's be more specific. Would you please outline some examples of what is happening in the ocean today, in the marine world at large, that has a direct impact on Earth?
Well, very small changes in temperature, and pH balance in the ocean. But temperature is it's amazing. Temperature is one of the, from oceanographic standpoint, and then ultimately, which would affect, you know, the biological and ecological. But temperature changes everything.
Is the biggest.
Yeah, the difference in the way the oceans flow. Evaporation, which eventually, you know, is going to bring rainfall to other parts of the world.
That's right.
Yeah, and all these things that we've come to, I think, understand is truly, you know, with the it's not so much we have climate conditions we've never seen before, but it's just the extremes. Yeah. That those are all things that are very much tied back to just, you know, parameter changes in the ocean environment.
What can we all, do you think, eventually, as individual, as part of a society, part of a community, help to impact positively when it deals with the ocean? Because somehow, what I give you my impression, loving the ocean tremendously, and from surfing to scuba diving to snorkeling to all of it, to really understanding its correlation, I have a feeling sometimes that we powerless looking at this big blue. Yeah. This greater blue. Yeah. Right? So what do you think we could do all of us, and then we'll correlate it to agriculture and viticulture, but we could do to make it a better place.
Well, the first thing is awareness.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's a tough one, really, because in so many ways, it's already been done. So what we need to do is understand that what you do now, and sacrifices you make, but I don't want to say that sacrifices, because that you automatically lose people when you say that. But it's but those activities, whatever they are that you do now, is going to pay off in ways that may not be very visible to the person who is feels that they are giving up something. So it's a question of it's awareness, it's education, and demonstration that what we as a civilization, what we as humanity can and should be doing, asking ourselves what is the right approach. Those sacrifices really aren't as bad as we.
For sure.
Yeah. And what we're getting in return is huge, more for our children and our grandchildren.
Yeah.
But it's very measurable, the effects we've had. So if that can be demonstrated in a constructive way, that we don't want to keep going on this path. Ultimately, like anything else, it has to be made. It has to be presented in a way that people feel is to their benefit, and even financial benefit. I hate to say it, but monetizing climate change.
I think that's the way to go.
Yeah, and understand.
And maybe we start, in a simple way. In Europe, I'm going to use a very basic example that touches all of you, dear friends, and all of us as individuals, is waste management.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we could finish our Malbec to the Petit Syrah, right?
Okay. No, I'm...
We've done that a few times. I'll let you. So when I say waste, so I was raised with 3 bins. A blue, a yellow, and a green, which is in France, the 3. And the green is obviously compostable. Everything vegetables and all that, eggshells. And then, you have glass, and then the other, paper. In big cities now, you're allowed to so many kilos, so many pounds of waste as a measurable. If you go below, you get an incentive. If you get above, you get penalized. So as an example, this is one way we could touch people, is through the amount of waste they generate. And all that. How would you recommend we somehow build an incentive for? Is it water management? Is it... one thing which I'm always shocked in, whether it's hotels or even when I see even my own children, I tell them don't stay more than 2 minutes under the shower, or even a minute. You stop the water in between, you shampoo, and then you start it again and you rinse.
Yeah.
Water management as far as the intakes or outtakes of that.
Yeah, and I think the important thing there is, I don't know, and again, not to be cynical, but, it's the gallon of water here and the gallon of water there. That's not so much what's going to make the difference, or, getting water by request in a restaurant when then, almond growers, how much water they can use. And I'm not in any way knocking almond growers, but that's just an extreme of
the impact of a beef.
Yeah, exactly.
When you have it in your plate and all the water is being used through his lifetime.
And if you're getting water on request at a restaurant, that's really not saving a lot. But what it does, it's the awareness. You got to start there. With these resources have limits, and you can't pound that message home enough. And then then that goes beyond just the daily use, but it goes beyond and then it leads to the education of on the grander scale of water conservation, and drip irrigation in a vineyard. That's a given. We've done that forever, but there's a time where that even was considered very clever, very amazing way to save water.
And now we monitor it through a greater system.
Well, and see that, and that's a good point. If you want to bring it right to the agriculture, is one of the when I'm asked about what innovations are we doing to be softer on the impact of the environment in farming, it's not so much that we're doing anything. We're collecting data, so we know what we can and should do and when we should do it. And that all winds back to resource management, resource conservation.
That's it.
Yeah. And then, of course, if you take it to the climate change, there's water management and that type of thing, and then the climate change is all about carbon footprint.
Yeah.
And so it's alternative energies, conserving your carbon footprint as much, or shrinking your carbon footprint as much as possible. That's it. Yeah, and through solar and whatnot, and making those things. Making someone who installs a solar system, there's a recognition there. They should be celebrated. And that's the kind of thing that it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take a generation. So we have to start teaching that next
And
generation.
I'm glad we have Napa Greens as an example for us here in Napa Valley to recognize this, to celebrate this, to give us the pillars and the direction, because it's amazing. We are the children of Mother Nature, and we're really borrowing the land of our children in many ways. So we should have the absolute commitment, if we own vineyards like you do, a 50-acre beautiful estate, Titus Vineyards, to commit to being, an amazing, not just a steward, a leader of the land, the best friend of the land, and do what needs to be done. I mean, we here overlooking Raymond Vineyards, this is fully organic, fully biodynamic, 100% certified at all level, solar panels and energy, carbon footprint minimizer, and that's the key. I think if we touch the land, don't you think we should be fully engaged into being responsible?
Absolutely. And it's setting the example, and like I say, you promote yourself through those channels, and that's how the awareness begins.
Sure.
And you set yourself apart with these activities, but and it's not to say that I'm in any way on a soapbox or taking the high road. It's just that this is something we're doing, and it needs to be promoted in such a way that others will see the benefit of it.
That's it.
And see how they personally can benefit by participating in it. So you have, I guess that's my point coming back, is you have to build everybody up and not separate yourself.
That's right.
But it's an inclusive process.
Yeah.
And
it's
and
a
make
movement.
everybody somehow vested in those measures. And then, that's, you can just go on and on. I mean, there's so many resources that were established out of convenience, plastics that, have just come back to bite us, and training people.
And we knew it was going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, how could it not, right? But
that's it.
Yeah.
Now, Eric, for you, so you went into the marine world for how many decades?
A couple.
And then you came back to the world of wine.
Yeah.
What happened? You realized the ocean could not grow grapes.
It was
making seaweed was not good enough.
It was I mean, they were very both very interesting fields. I was at a point in my life where I wanted to I was hoping to be able to do both, actually. And then in the end, and when I say do both, be involved in ocean studies, more on, at this point I was in commercial biology, so I wanted, be able to maintain some, contracts with some of the projects that I was on, which I was able to do successfully for maybe 5 or 6 years. But then, you can't have two masters.
Well, specifically wine is pretty demanding thing.
Well, it is, and it became more demanding. The more we wanted to farm for quality, change the configuration of our vineyard just a lot more. As you know, farming grapes is now a 12-month operation, and it used to be basically pruning to suckering, and you were done. And then you skated through the summer until harvest.
They need a little more attention than that. It's like a wife and a mistress.
Perhaps, yeah.
But I'm talking to Titus, the great grandson of the Emperor of Rome and Italy.
So it was, at that point, I a lot of it was just coming into, personal reasons, of course.
Sure.
This is where I wanted to settle back down. I'd say in the 20 years that I was not here in Napa, I basically compared everywhere I went to Napa and figured that, And there's other places I was tempted to put roots down for one reason or another. But, like I say, coming back to here always just seemed like the better option. And at that point, and then like I say, some of it had to do with family, and as a family, we decided to develop this brand,
which is a great idea.
Yeah, it was. It turns out to be a great idea. The timing was impeccable. Before that, we were selling fruit to other wineries, which was very easy life. There's no question about that.
You could probably do. Do you still do both?
No. At this point now with Titus, where our 50 acres all goes into this label, and in addition to that, we're probably maybe 25% of the production is from non-estate fruit.
In addition, buyers. So you buy grapes.
Yeah.
What about that Petite Syrah? Is it grapes you buy?
No, this is
from the estate.
Yeah, and actually I say that, but in reality we purchase some, but most of our programs, all of our programs, are based on our estate fruit, and that we supplement.
Wow.
Yeah.
Petite Syrah is very exciting.
It is. It's great, and it's wonderful. And there's, if you've had Petite Syrahs from a time gone by, 70s or 80s, there was a little bit more of a tannic note to them. They were fermented to dryness on the skins. They're just big, bold wines that almost got a little too strappy. And so just with a little finessing, separating the juice from the skins before dryness, just getting that tannic balance.
And you make the wine?
I do not. Our winemaker is Stephen Cruzan, who works under the direction of my brother Philip.
Great.
And Stephen has been with us for 6 vintages now, and he's excellent. He's everything we could ask for in a winemaker.
Wow.
And then
great.
And then you'll find me out in the vineyard. But
is it where you spend the most amount of time?
That and spending time here with
I
you.
love it.
Yeah.
But you out front a lot as well.
Yeah, I'm essentially the general manager.
Yeah.
So I run the vineyard operation, and then anything that has to do with sales and marketing.
And it's you and your brother.
But more, Stephen is actually, in addition to the winemaker, I call him the building superintendent. And
that's great.
Yeah, because somebody needs to. Have you been to the winery before?
Not yet.
Yeah. Well,
I was waiting today would be my invitation.
Yeah. Well, you're absolutely invited, and we look forward to.
I'm gonna go to the Coliseum of Napa Valley.
Yeah. But the reason I even bring that up is because, you need to have somebody on site all the time for just those little quirky things that always need attention. And he's that kind of guy. In addition to, he's got a background in biochemistry, so I've never worried about his understanding of the process.
So between you, biology, him, biochemistry, we set.
Oh yeah, the
bio world breathe.
We can geek out quite a bit on things that have nothing to do.
Well,
with that.
Let's geek out to the Cap Franc next.
Yeah, absolutely. So and the Petite Syrah, once again, I wanted to bring this along because it just, we're very proud of our heritage in Napa. The property that the winery sits on, when we bought it in the 60s, that was planted in all the grapes I described to you earlier.
Yeah.
That was pre-Prohibition, some of those vineyards were, but definitely representative of the the early 20th century Napa. And then and this is kind of a nod to that, this in our Zinfandel program.
Yeah, you have a great Zin as well, of course.
Yeah. And then we shift gears when we get into the 90s, and we start. Well, actually, there was a period there in the 80s where, as we started removing all of these older heritage varietals, we put in a lot of Chardonnay, because at that time, the industry couldn't get enough Chardonnay.
That's right.
And they were very much less selective than they are now about where it comes from.
Yeah.
So
too warm climate for it. Maybe.
Yeah. But you recall some of the some of the best Howell Mountain vineyards were in Chardonnay back in those days. Yeah. So it was just being planted everywhere. And if I remember right, Chardonnay was the first varietal that surpassed $2,000 a ton, which seemed like all the money in the world back then. This is the.
It's a little different today. Well, I'll buy anything you want at 2,000.
Exactly. Well, and actually, that's I love telling the story because in addition to all those heritage varietals, what I call heritage varietals on the property, no Bordeaux varietals and all these other. We had a little bit of Semillon. That was the one thing that was a Bordeaux varietal. But there's about an acre of Concords. And yeah, there's an acre of Concords. And
pretty cool.
So
why not?
Exactly. And so we would just sell those. We'd hand pick them and sell them to some of the local, just the produce vendors, roadside produce vendors, or I would just load them up in the car and bring them down to the Bay Area and sell them to like Berkeley Bowl and some of these places.
Cool idea.
Yeah. And that was great. And we got essentially $1 a pound for them, which is $2,000 a ton, which is more than Cabernet was getting in those days. I'm talking late 70s, early 80s.
Pretty cool.
So interesting when you look at just, how things have evolved. Yeah.
Well, how do you think? Well, let me serve you as we speak.
Yeah.
I know you could finish, We don't have an area where we dispose of the wines because we love drinking wine. How could we do this? Yeah. I mean, if both of us starts to dispose of wine, the world is over. So how have you seen, I think people would really enjoy, cheers, by the way. Thank you for bringing such a great lineup. How have you seen the evolution of Napa Valley and where do you see it going from where we are?
Well, having been here and somewhat aware since the mid 70s, actually, it's
somewhat aware. I like that.
Well, meaning that when you're a teenager, your attention is going to other things. You got to hire a different set of priorities. Than the local business environment. However, you're still absorbing it, and but no, it's evolved from quite simply put, just many small family-run properties, fewer wineries, much more of a firewall between the wineries and the growers. And when I say firewall, I just meant you're the grower, we're the vintner, and when the fruit hits 23 and a half, 24, bring it on in, and we'll make some wine. And thank you very much. And so it's a very simple, much more simple time. And
that has changed dramatically.
That's changed dramatically. And we were joking earlier about there are no bad wines in Napa. There was a time when there was some questionable wines, and that had to be weeded out if we wanted to be recognized as a destination wine growing area, world.
For sure.
Yeah, which we've successfully done, obviously. So there's been a huge amount of investment. And certainly from the research and development side, the technical investment, from Davis and other originators of innovativeness. But then there's an emotional investment. There's clearly an economic investment, and I think a big pivotal point with that is probably in the late 90s and our proximity to the Bay Area and specifically Silicon Valley. That we have a huge amount of investment, first recognition, then investment of the area. And I always sort of tongue-in-cheek like to tell people when we have a similar discussion that if Napa Valley was up in the growing conditions we have was up in Mendocino County, I'm not sure if we'd see the same just because of the proximity. That's really what I'm referring to. The
geographical location
makes... And you could have ideal growing conditions up in Modoc County, and it wouldn't have the same.
Sex appeal to come.
Yeah, exactly.
But you where do you see it going from now? Besides up and up in quality. And reputation.
And I'm just one more guy with an opinion, but based on what we see looking around. But there's certainly that consolidation going on, and I know many are concerned about that. And by consolidation, obviously we just mean smaller properties being bought up by larger properties, and some of that is just because of normal family dynamics. As we know, there was so many successful brands that were developed in the 70s, and they're essentially aging out. And by aging out means people are coming of age. They have to make decisions about their future. Other family members, just how to divide up the pie, the personal pie.
That's it.
Yeah.
And they just end up selling.
Yeah. But on the upside, I guess, is that, when they end up selling, they generally sell it to people who have no problem investing what needs to be invested
That's
to continue the excellence. Yeah.
I think it's very positive, whatever way it goes. People keep, as you said, investing in better wines, better vineyards, better materials, better equipment, better on all fronts, right?
Yeah.
Have we ever seen Napa Valley so good? I mean, when you taste everybody's wine, it's so spectacular.
No. We have not ever seen Napa Valley so good. Yeah.
Where do you think Napa Valley should work on, from your perspective?
What should they work on?
Yeah. As a region, and maybe all of us individually, too.
I think that, when you travel around, there is, unfortunately, there is a impression that we are sort of decoupled from the rest of the industry, and don't have a real appreciation of what the average wine drinker is, and so there's an elitism that I think is, which I think is it's misunderstood.
But it's a little bit
there. You have to deal with it. Yeah. And so I think we need to educate. Going back to just what I was saying about the environment, a lot of it's education and awareness, and the more you get out there, and one of the best compliments I ever get is when people say, you just seem like a normal guy.
Well, you half fish, half human.
Exactly.
Do they know that? You have fins growing at night?
Yeah. So, I'm not so normal. No, but it's just that because people think that everyone's going to have an ascot and a beret and
that's right.
Cigarette and a holder if they're from Napa, and so it's just we're still founded on family owned and operated for the most. And again, there is this consolidation. There's fewer wineries, but not the minimum, not the minority. So we just have to push, that we are still, we work hard at what we do. We're not all getting rich. It's a very resource intensive business, and
we're all getting poor.
Exactly.
The opportunity cost may be better somewhere else.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
But
buy
we
some
love
McDonald's franchises if you want it.
Yeah, for sure. No, but in many ways, people think it's limitless profitability business, but it's not.
Yeah. And I think, and I'm not sure if that's where you're going in the question, but I think that's what Napa has to work on is its image, because
for sure.
And people tend to want to knock the best one off their pedestal anyway. So there's a little bit of a chip on the shoulder to start with. So you kind of have to say it's we're good, but a lot of it just has to do with our location, and we're just doing what comes natural.
Being a little more humble.
Yeah, and I think most of the country thinks a $60 bottle of Cabernet, forget about a $100 bottle of Cabernet, is just way off the chart. But, in the end, even to be able to explain why that is, why is it a $60 bottle of Cabernet, not 20? And, some of it is clearly, the resources that go into making that bottle. But also, there's a quality parameter. And,
which you clearly have in that Cab Franc.
Yeah.
So tell us about, here we go.
Oh, thank you.
Cabernet Franc. Tell us about, one of your top wines, of course, as a winery, which I love. Mm-hmm. I'm a huge fan of Cabernet Franc. I think the potential in Napa Valley is enormous.
Yeah, and I guess I'll just start off by asking you, why are you a tremendous fan of it? Yeah.
The essence of what Cabernet is all about. We all know it's the father of Cabernet Sauvignon, naturally.
Yeah.
Can you believe he married Sauvignon Blanc and they had children? It was Cabernet Sauvignon.
Yeah.
But because of this powerful, austere, grand, cathedralesque, maybe Gothic even approach to what a red wine can be. I come from the world of Pinot originally.
Right.
So when I try this, I think this is statuesque, this is imposing, this is powerful, this is enigmatic, and this is very eloquent.
Yeah.
And often I find Cabernet Franc maybe more grandiose than Cabernet Sauvignon. Mm-hmm. I'm very impressed by the power and the delicacy of this wine.
Yeah.
So that's my view of Cab Franc. That's why I think Napa Valley has huge potential.
Oh yeah, it does, and I think once again a lot of it because we've been making Cabernet Franc since 1996. That was our first vintage as a standalone Cab Franc,
Really?
and the whole reason we started making it because as I was explaining to you earlier, when we started experimenting with all the different Bordeaux varietals. That was because we planted those varietals, not because we just went out and decided to buy a ton and see what happened. So we had some commitment to them. And
how many acres did you plant?
At that time, about 3 acres of Cabernet Franc, which was about 2.75 more than we needed for the Cab program. And the reason I say that is again because we're a valley floor vineyard, tend to be softer tannins on the Cabernet. So as we started going through the blending. The Cabernet Franc tended to soften the Cabernet more than we wanted. And so it just, as far as, the Merlot and the Cabernet, the Petit Verdot and the Malbec, those all, kind of had a natural fit. And there's too much of almost a duplication with Cab Franc. So it's like, well, that's fine. It's 3 out of 4 ain't bad, right?
That's right.
And so we just started making a Cabernet Franc varietal, and that was 1996. 300 cases.
Wow. Yeah. And you were one of
one of not many that were
one of not many. Yeah.
And so I'd say for so where are we now? Almost 25 years later, probably 20 of those 18 to 20 of those years it was still a challenge to sell Cabernet Franc. And I'd say somewhere in the last 5 to 10 years people started getting a little more recognition of it. More of them started showing up around. And still not a lot in the broad market wholesale channels because a lot of producers are just doing a couple hundred cases and they stay at the winery.
That's right.
So there's still not a lot of opportunity for that, just the education, the awareness. Now that has finally turned over, and more people are just seeking it out. Yeah.
Well, that's a great wine.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's many reasons for it. I mean, you had a much more eloquent description of how it separates itself from Cabernet.
No.
And I'm talking more about how it separates itself in the market. And so we finally arrived on that. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Now,
it's been a fun ride, I have to say, though, because I feel like I've been kind of a steward, me and several others.
To build Cab Franc.
Yeah, as a recognizable varietal. Yeah.
I'm going to go right to the top now, to your top. It's a black label.
Yeah.
But in between, tell us about Titus the Roman, that your last name is coming from. Because I'm sure many of our friends don't know who was Titus and what he's done as big accomplishments.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly memorialized in the Arch of Titus in Rome, which is a beautiful monument.
For sure.
To the point where I had considered putting it on our label.
You've put the amphora.
I've put the amphora on the label,
which is a good.
Yeah. So as far as having a just kind of a pinnacle wine, another tier above what we have here, my consideration was to put the Arch of Titus on that, which I think would be very kind of
quite the statement.
Yeah, because it just brings into that whole dialogue. And of course, it's really nothing more than coincidence that my name's Titus and the Romans Titus. But
no, I think directly.
You're right. We probably go. Yeah, we probably go.
Well, my sister did a DNA analysis not too long ago. And we thought, 100% French, 100% French. Guess what? Maybe she's not my sister. 26% Italian.
Right.
Woo! Big discovery. So I'm going to do mine.
Yeah.
I did it, and I'm really French. So I'm going to go and do it with the same, DNA analysis that she's done it.
Yeah.
Because maybe you descend directly from the emperor.
It could be. My mother is Italian, and then my father was, his lineage, although they've been in the United States well before the American Revolution. But from the Northern Europe,
for
UK.
sure,
yeah. So of course, when the Romans were occupying all of Europe and Scandinavia and part of Russia, that's where that influence was.
Hence the blue eyes.
The
Viking in him.
Yeah, blue eyes, green eyes. Yeah.
Half Viking, half Roman. That's a powerful blend. So, what inspired you yourself today running Titus? What is the most exciting things that
That's a really good question because when we built the facility, which wasn't that long ago, that was kind of a rebirth of the brand.
Yeah.
And before that, we were modest and satisfied with being modest, but
Okay.
there was a realization, I think, that if you go back, to the late '90s, early 2000s, there was enough popularity and demand for boutique brands that all you had to do is make a little wine and you could sell it. And there's plenty of distributors who would,
For sure.
yeah. But what we didn't have was the opportunity for visitors, not only from the business standpoint, the direct sale opportunity, but just to develop the brand and to give people a sense of who we are and to build a validation and identity. And everybody wants that, right?
For sure.
Yeah. So when we decided to build a winery, shortly after the last recession, but it took us a few years to get our entitlements and everything. So we broke ground in 2014, and actually built during 2015. Wow. That was our first vintage. So that was a whole different way of looking at the business.
For sure.
And one of the and you can appreciate this. One of the satisfactions I get out of it, in addition to just having an attractive place to go to work every day, but it's just the fact that I've got a staff of 10 and they all enjoy working there.
Yeah, that's what they tell you. Not for the most part.
The ones who don't have pretty much left. Yes. So
went to the ocean.
Exactly. But so the satisfaction of being able to contribute in that way, giving
sure.
A number of people their employment, and so that I get quite a bit of satisfaction out of that, as fundamental as that sounds. But then there's an aspect of it that I think it brings everything that you were asking me about earlier. It brings it all under one roof.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
Everything from the science, the both theoretical and applied science, the logistical planning just to get things done every day, both in the winery and the vineyard. There's the commercial aspects. There's the satisfaction of being able to make a marketable product and sell it at a positive margin, basic stuff. But then there's the part where you're participating in a industry that is so important to not only the state of California, but to
the world of wine.
Yeah, and so again, you have that interface with, and then of course, it's a luxury item, and so there's the kind of the behavioral, economic aspects of it. There's so many things we find fascinating in the wine world. And it just ties it all together. It touches it all, exactly. Yeah.
Well, to that point, this wine, that's
would you agree?
Totally. Totally. I'm with you 100%.
There's nothing that you don't get involved with.
No, but I would ask you a further down question, which is the most important one of today, is what you think you haven't achieved yet that you wish to do in the wine world.
Well, it's funny because you can go.
Stunning, by the way.
Yeah. This is our reserve cab. Yeah.
Woo! So. Woo! You can find it at the Oakville Grocery and at Titus Vineyards. It's a little advertising moment because we want to sell wine, dear friends, and this is what you need in your cellar.
Ultimately, that is what we're here to do.
It's a little pricey, isn't it?
A little pricey?
No. What's the price of that?
I would say that this can easily fight over its weight class. This is essentially a $100 bottle, 110.
Oh, that's not bad at all.
No.
That's a great value, I would call it.
Yeah, and this will stand up to wines.
Oof.
No
Give me a case. I'll buy a case today.
All right.
Done.
Industry discount.
Oh, thank you. You'll see it at the Oakville Grocery.
Tell my people, yeah. So,
yeah. We're related, Amber. We'll go down to the Coliseum.
Well, it's funny because you can go up or down in answering that question. So, we make a modest amount of an estate-grown wine that we like to think is being offered at a pretty good quality to price proposition.
Which is the case.
Yeah,
Wow.
Yeah. And again, Napa wines are not cheap, but at the same time, considering the quality, I think we
But when you divide by 5, $100 by 5 is $20 a glass. It's nothing.
No,
a cocktail is $25.
Yeah.
For vodka.
Made from, yeah, exactly.
Who knows?
Store-bought, yeah.
Well, yeah. No, but it's true.
But
tell me about your dream.
Uh,
What haven't you done yet that you think you want to do?
Yeah. Well, it's funny, and this is going to be very roundabout, and I probably won't even answer your question. But, you know, my father was much more interested in having, so he liked the farming aspect of it. He was not interested as much on the wine and the marketing side. And as soon as we started making the Titus label, and once he really realized that the world of distribution and competition and everything that went into just building a brand, it just wasn't as sexy as growing grapes.
For sure.
Yeah.
But, it's true. It's not as sexy.
Yeah. But the idea of being just like the little old winemaker who has a barrel of wine and sells it to the neighborhood. Or trades it. Yeah, that would have been something that he definitely would have appreciated. So all I'm really saying is that wine as an approachable, affordable entity, that's something that definitely would have pleased my father. And you know, I would like to, again, this isn't like it's not a true dream, but it's something I'd like to fulfill, is just be able to have a line of wines that is much more approachable in price point and easy daily drinkers that, again, are, good price to value.
Is that possible in Napa Valley? Or
no, it's not possible in Napa Valley. But it doesn't.
So you have to do.
That would be outside. Yeah. So again, that's not anything truly amazing. And then the other, of course, is to go to the upper end, the upper echelon, and again make just your stunning essence, concentrated core of what you do, just without question that this is.
I thought you would tell me planting vineyards in the ocean. I thought you would go into, I want to be at 1,000 feet in the ocean and plant grapes. Do you think that's possible?
What I do think is possible is with the as climate changes, that just identifying areas to grow in that aren't even considered now, and some of those will be a lot closer to, because here we don't grow that close to the ocean. I mean, some areas, but the microclimates. Yeah. But if you go to down under New Zealand, even more temperate climates where you're essentially planting right up to the ocean, but the water has to be warmer, so you don't get those fog banks coming in. So I think that is very interesting to identify areas that will, or places that maybe they grow grapes, but they're just unremarkable, and see about the prospect of those actually becoming very highly touted.
Now, what about dealing with your two worlds, the ocean and the earth?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of friends of mine, specifically Loire Valley, Champagne, and maybe New Zealand, have put wine in the ocean for a while to age.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about what you think of that. And apparently the faster aging program.
Yeah.
You remember the Titanic champagne bottles going for 80,000 a pop.
Yeah.
Which was crazy, and supposedly it accelerates the aging, or it makes the aging better. Is that
under pressure? I would imagine. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, I think that's all interesting stuff, fun stuff.
To study, right?
Yeah. Would I go down that rabbit hole? Probably not. I would encourage anyone that's interested in that to do
it.
Yeah.
I got gifted those bottles with a lot of shells on the glass. They've been there for 20 years or 30 years or 40 years.
Yeah.
Pretty cool, though.
Oh, yeah. And I think that says almost as much about, the marine environment, of how, things, the succession rate of how does an ecosystem get built. It's built right on that bottle,
And why not as well in the sky? Jules Verne alluded to wine being aged on the moon, so why not in a similar way as the ocean station?
Where there's less pressure.
That's right.
Maybe it'll take longer.
Yes, so you play with both,
Yeah.
as you go up.
Yeah.
It's interesting, right?
It is interesting. That's physics and coming into play.
Yeah.
Lots of physics in winemaking.
But
then you're exploring the extremes of it.
What do you think about the aquavit going around the earth on a boat back to Denmark and tasting better because it's been around the world on the ocean? Besides marketing.
I don't know. I mean, you've been around the country and shown your wines in different parts of the country where there's different humidity levels and whatnot. And some days you're just saying, these wines are just tasting fantastic.
That's right.
And the same wine, if you're maybe somewhere where it's a little damp and maybe temperature's a little lower outside, same temperature inside, but it's like these wines are just tight. They're just not tasting as good. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I mean, I wish I could just sit there and characterize for you exactly why that is from from the whether it's meteorological or basic physics, but I'm just convinced that there is a difference.
Yeah.
And it, maybe humidity, it may be something else. It may be the magnetism of certain areas. And I don't mean that frivolously. It could be.
Yeah.
There could be something about the way things line up at a particular part of the country. Our wines always taste good in Arizona when I'm showing them.
Really?
Yeah. So why in Arizona? I don't know, but we know that there is once again a certain variation in things like magnetism and whatnot. So
if you would make wine out of something from the ocean, what would you choose?
Oh, that's very
something fermented alcoholic.
Yeah. Well, it would have to be. It would have to be some kind of an algae or a sea plant, obviously. And are there any like really tasty ones? Ulva, sea lettuce. If you,
I actually do.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's
a good one.
That would probably make an interesting wine.
Yeah.
You'd have to add a lot of sugar to it.
Yeah, but why not?
But it's not as waxy. It doesn't have the same that waxy.
I don't know many, but this one I haven't. Well, and what about all those great chips today made out of seaweed or algus?
Yeah, the nori.
Yeah, those are great.
Oh yeah.
I mean, great flavors. So I'm thinking, must be something we could do.
There's not a lot of sugar in the ocean environment. So,
yeah,
I think that could be a hindrance.
Maybe we distill. Who knows? We're about to create a new product.
Exactly.
So, Eric, maybe one last statement to all the world in front of us. You tell the world anything you want as the great grandson of the Emperor Titus, coming out of Rome, building the Colosseum.
Yeah.
With the greatest fights gladiators ever confronted each other.
Yeah.
And the great wines of Napa Valley. I mean, what a wine.
Well, those gladiators had short life expectancies.
Yeah.
So we, because of the wine that we're drinking, I think we have long life expectancies.
Good. Well said.
Yes. So I think that with that long life expectancy, I think we have the opportunity to enjoy quite a bit. I think we also have the opportunity to contribute quite a bit to the betterment of our society. And we're in a position to do so. We're very fortunate. So
are you trying to tempt all our friends to drink more?
I am.
Oh, good. How many glasses of Titus shall we have per day?
I think that's a tough question.
Breakfast, lunch, dinner.
Because we always, whenever we're asked how many glasses, especially when you're talking to a doctor, you pretty much you go through your head and then you say half of what you actually drink, right? I mean,
of course.
Yeah. So.
If that. Luckily, they don't even know I drink wine.
So do I do that now with answering this question? If I say 2, do I really mean 4? If I say 4, do I really mean 8? Yeah. Let's say 3. Let's say 3.
Perfect.
Yeah, 3
it's a bottle of wine a day. Now it's a bottle of wine.
Which can't hurt, right?
Yeah.
So.
Well, dear friends, it was a lot of fun to be with you.
It was, yeah.
And to be with Mr. Eric Titus himself. So come and see him, as well as his family, insanely now. We are neighbors, and we're delighted today that we could have this great conversation about the different worlds. The only world he's missing, maybe after resurrection or reincarnation, is to be an aviator, but he's been a marine biologist and now a winemaker.
There's still time. Yeah.
Yes, to the future. The three elements.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good point. Yeah. All right.
Cheers.
Well, cheers.